Number 5. The Lighthouse. From visionary director Robert Eggers comes The Lighthouse, a harrowing fable that teaches us the importance of respecting personal boundaries and respecting seabirds. Eggers is one of my favorite modern horror directors, whose work sits a cut above the most usual horror fare with The Witch, The Lighthouse, and The Northman, which isn't quite horror unless you're terrified of Norway. The Lighthouse is unlike any other scary movies you've seen. Actually, it's probably unlike most movies you've seen. It's kinda hard to define The Lighthouse under one genre. It's unsettling and definitely makes me feel all heebly-jeebly watching it, but it isn't horror in the traditional sense. There's no monsters or slashers, just two men, a lighthouse, a whole lot of seagulls, and enough cabin fever-induced madness to shake a lobster at. A rookie lighthouse keeper, played by Robert Pattinson, is assigned to keep a lighthouse on a small isolated island off the coast of New England, under the supervision of the island's crusty old master, Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are some of the best working actors out there right now, and the two of these titans absolutely show up for this, carrying this two-headed character piece on their backs and speaking in some of the most hilariously memorable accents ever put to film. Seriously, Willem Dafoe's old nautical piratical accent in this thing needs to be taught in acting schools. I would do an impression, but I won't do it justice. The film is shot beautifully, the whole thing seeming like a mix between a bad dream and an avant-garde theater production, leaving you asking the entire time if anything you're seeing can be trusted, if any of it's even happening, or if the whole thing is all just one twisted nightmare between two very lonely, isolated men. Now, I can't say for sure if they went nuts because they weren't subscribed to Top 5 Scary, but I'm willing to bet that a little bit of entertainment from the best scary videos channel on the web might have helped some of that madness. So subscribe, maybe. Number 4. Annihilation. I've talked a bit about Annihilation before on this channel, and I will continue to do so until Annihilation gets the respect it deserves. That's my mission. I've never forgiven the movie-going populace for not seeing this one in theaters. Annihilation came to us from director and writer Alex Garland, who also gave us Ex Machina, a fantastic movie about having a crush on a robot. Annihilation is a cosmic horror story detailing the effects of after an asteroid crashes to Earth and a mysterious alien presence known as the Shimmer begins to manifest across a quarantine zone in a forest outside an army base. Everything the Shimmer touches starts to blend together. Biological life merging, double helixes swirling in a big cosmic gumbo. The film is hauntingly beautiful as it is terrifying. Our protagonist Lena, played by Natalie Portman, is a US Army veteran who lost her husband in an unrelated combat mission. One day he shows up on her doorstep, convulsing violently, leading Lena towards the Shimmer. Learning her husband was involved, she ventures forth with a group of fellow researchers and soldiers to uncover what lies at the heart of the Shimmer, what's causing it, and if it can be stopped. The film is a visual treat with its lush vistas and uniquely terrifying monster designs. I've talked about Annihilation Bear before, and I will take any opportunity to talk about Annihilation Bear. I love Annihilation Bear. Slap a photo of him back there for me. Annihilation is the perfect kind of horror movie, simultaneously exploring complex themes of depression, grief, humanity's inherent nature and propensity towards self-destructive behavior, but it also asks even bigger questions like, wouldn't it be really yucky if a bear had a human skull inside its head that screamed like a dying human while it was roaring? Get you a horror movie that can do both, okay? Number 3. Jacob's Ladder. While the first two entries on our list were pretty recent and well received, I want to throw it back a couple decades for our next entry and highlight a cult classic that could always use a little bit more love. Jacob's Ladder details the story of Jacob Singer, a Vietnam veteran who 4 years later, after returning home from the war, struggles to readjust to his normal life. Not helping matters much, no doubt, is the fact that Jacob keeps seeing horrifying monstrosities surrounding him every day. It seems as if since he's come home, nothing has ever been the same. The film shows us life through Jacob's tormented eyes. As he tries to navigate through healing and overcoming his personal demons, he is constantly haunted by real-life demons that seem to have a very vested interest in him. Matters only serve to get a lot more confusing when Jacob learns that other members of his platoon, back from his army days, have all been suffering similar things, reporting seeing the same monsters and being haunted. Desperate to find the truth, Jacob seeks out the cause of what's happening to him and his old friends, and ends up descending down a path of madness, learning things no man ever should. Worth noting is just how influential Jacob's Ladder is, serving as one of the direct inspirations for the legendary Silent Hill series of games, with Silent Hill 2 in particular taking major inspiration from the film's plotline, monsters, twists, right down to the protagonists even wearing the exact same outfit as a little homage. Jacob's Ladder is a little older than some of the other entries on this list. It is absolutely worth a watch and still worth your time. A great performance out of Tim Robbins and one of the most wild twist ending horror movies ever had. A bunch have tried to copy this. I'm sure you've seen a million hack writers copy it, but no one did it as cool as when Jacob's Ladder did it, so there. And actually thinking about it, I shouldn't even mention a twist, so There was no twist. Everything in Jacob's Ladder happens very literally. Go into it knowing that, okay? Number 2, Sinister. Moving. It's always stressful, isn't it? It's a huge pain. Well, Sinister is a 2012 horror film about an everyday family moving houses and all the trials and tribulations that come with that, like having to update your postal code on your information, unpacking your stuff and figuring out where all your art books are gonna go, and finding out that you moved into a house where a series of grisly rituals happened, sacrificing the previous family who lived here, and it's all been filmed and kept in a box upstairs in the attic. You know, just regular stuff the kids go through all the time. A struggling true crime novelist is trying to chase his glory days and intentionally moves into a house he knows where ghastly deaths took place in order to get close to the story so he can better research it and write a bestseller. He discovers a box in the attic full of film of all of the crimes and becomes obsessed with uncovering and exposing what happened, mostly so he can make a quick buck and get himself back on top again and make the late night circuit. As his obsession grows, it starts to affect his family and children in concerning ways, as everyone in the family starts acting stranger, having visions, hallucinations, and psychotic episodes, leaving you wondering if there is something much, much deeper going on in this house beyond a floundering author chasing a bestseller. Now, if you haven't seen this one, it's definitely worth going into this one as blind as you possibly can, because the twists and turns totally make this one. I spent the entire runtime of this propped up on the edge of the couch, my heart pounding, hoping that everything would turn out to be totally okay, even though I knew better. It's a horror movie, things never go great. The movie's got a stellar sense of dread that refuses to let go once it starts, and only lets you breathe out once the credits roll, and even then, not for very long. Fantastic performances across the board, but a special shout out goes to Ethan Hawke, who makes this thing. Number 1, Hereditary. Now, there are a ton of movies that could easily have taken the number 1 spot here, and I thought pretty hard about making The Shining number 1, since, you know, it's kind of a classic, but I figured a lot of people have talked about The Shining, and then I remembered the experience of seeing Hereditary in a movie theater, and how it was the only time in my life I've ever seriously thought about leaving a movie theater because I thought I was gonna throw up on the seats. I was so scared and uncomfortable. Hereditary is a 2018 horror movie from visionary Ari Aster, who also gave us the psychological horror movie masterpiece Midsummer, so Aster really just bangs out the hits. Hereditary is about as peak A24 horror movie as it gets. One of those ones where the monster is really a metaphor for generational trauma and all that. After the grand matriarch of a Midwestern family passes away, her daughter and grandkids begin to uncover the cryptic and terrifying truth behind their ancestry, trying desperately to escape the sinister legacy they've inadvertently inherited. This movie is terrifying in the worst of ways. It's not just jump scares or tons of blood. No. This is elevated horror. This is not your usual horror story. It really zeroes in on the way too close to home horror of watching a family break apart. It is gut-wrenchingly painful to watch, preying on really specific kind of fears. It's gonna get its hooks in you and have your teeth grinding for the full 2 hours runtime and for ages afterwards. If you've seen this, I dare you to look at a pigeon, a stop sign, cheese wire, or a treehouse ever the same after this movie. And staggering performances. Toni Collette goes for absolute gold and delivers one of the best performances I've ever seen in a horror movie, full stop. She needs an Oscar for most upsetting crying I have ever heard in a film, which is a category she would have no competition in. Hereditary might not be the goriest film or even the scariest movie I've ever seen or most upsetting. There's a bunch of Takashi Miike or Park Chan-wook films that would probably take that. But Hereditary is definitely one of the most viscerally scary movies I've ever seen. The kind that just sits in your gut and makes you think about it all day, like you were living through an actual nightmare. Watch only if you're truly brave. I know I made it sound absolutely horrible, but it is a great movie. Just don't be surprised if you don't sleep that night. Number 5, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A good tagline can really sell your movie, you know? In space, no one can hear you scream. You'll believe a man can fly. Absolute classics. In my opinion, there's few that go harder than the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre's bold proclamation and threat: who will survive and what will be left of them. The original Texas Chainsaw is a legend of horror, practically kickstarting slasher movies altogether. While there's a whole other discussion to be had about what could be considered the first true slasher movie, there's no denying that Chainsaw wrote the rulebook. Hulking monsters in a mask, a screaming final girl, Texas Chainsaw was writing the rules years before Michael Myers was chasing Jamie Lee. Texas Chainsaw is the classic slasher premise. A group of hapless young fools all fall victim to the kind of horrors that only exist in our worst nightmares. The Sawyer clan are a family of deranged hillbillies living in rural Texas who believe in using every part of the meat they hunt for their chili. They're not really interested in beef though. It's almost got a bit of a misleading name. You hear Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you imagine a sea of corn syrup, blood, and special effects that'll leave you needing a barf bag. And hey, don't worry. The stream of sequels and remakes that followed definitely do get there. The 2006 one is maybe one of the grossest movies I've ever seen. But the original is a much better made movie than any of that. It's honestly not nearly as gory as the title would have you believe, and would probably be considered tame by modern standards. I'd go so far as to say it's a masterpiece. Few movies capture the feeling of true insanity the way this one does. The screaming, the hooting, the hollering, being hunted by the Sawyers is the kind of fear that feels like it belongs in an evidence locker, not in a theater. It says something that in a study using Texas Chainsaw as a litmus test for audience perceptions of horror movies, the survey came back saying that the scariest thing in the entire movie was not the monsters or the chainsaws, but just the screams of the victims. Hey, enjoying what we do? We'd love if you toss and subscribe our way for more scary content every single day. Number 4, Sinister. Now, I normally don't like to bring science into a discussion about horror movies or about ghosts, but a recent 2020 study involving attaching heart monitors to viewers and making them watch horror movies while researchers tracked their heart rates apparently revealed Sinister to be the scariest movie of all time. Medically speaking, proof is in the pudding, or the heart rate. To be completely honest, I definitely see where they're coming from. I didn't need any sort of medical equipment to tell you I found Sinister downright terrifying. Sinister at first seems like it's going to be a pretty run-of-the-mill, corny ghost house movie, but after about 15 minutes my worries were put to bed and instead replaced by nightmares. A struggling true crime writer, played by a personal favorite, Mr. Ethan Hawke, moves into a house knowingly that was host to a series of grisly, horrifying rituals to some dark god. Hey, in this economy, you gotta take whatever deals you can. He moves in hoping that getting close to the scene of the crime will inspire his writings, and it sort of does, in a way, because he finds a series of films in the attic all showcasing the brutal things that have happened in his new home. And it does not take long before our would-be writer is obsessing over his home movie collection, letting it affect his work, his family, and his brain. Another great one where you're never sure how supernatural things are until you're extremely sure. Ethan Hawke rides the line well between kind of being dumb enough that you sort of think he deserves what's coming to him, but also sympathetic enough that you don't want to see him get grabbed anytime soon. A fantastic score sets the tone, leaving you always just a little anxious and your heart never quite slowing down enough to breathe. The scenes of the home movies in question are actually some of the scariest things I think I've ever seen in a Hollywood flick, and definitely deserve special mention, as they're probably the highlight of the film. Disturbingly real enough to seem like they might actually have happened, and restrained enough as well that it never dwells on the violence too much, letting your imagination fill in all the horrible, horrible blanks. Number 3, Saw. Now, Saw is hardly underrated or some hidden gem. They made 9 of them. I think everyone knows about Jigsaw and his sick little games by now, but that doesn't stop the original 2004 film from being one of my go-to Halloween movies every year. Equal parts detective thriller and equal parts stomach-churningly terrifying, there's a simple elegance to the first Saw. Before the storyline became so convoluted you needed a historian to help you navigate the timeline and secret double crosses, backstabs, betrayals, and secret jigsaws, there was just 2 men, a freaky little puppet, one rancid bathroom, and a saw. The movies get ridiculous very, very fast, with Jigsaw's level of control varying from superhuman levels of planning to straight up bad man, bad guy in some of the sequels. And the first is like that too, but there's something so terrifyingly real about the first one, you know? It feels like the worst intrusive thought you could ever have. Imagine someone had been stalking you, making a list of your wrongdoings, and wanted to test if you truly appreciated your life, if you'd be willing to fight for it. As a kid, even though I knew he was a fictional character played by a guy who's actually pretty nice in real life, I was terrified that one day I would wake up chained to a radiator, hear that hiss and crackle of the TV static, and see that evil little puppet grinning up at me. The first movie cuts all the fat, pun intended, and gets in good as you watch Jigsaw's 2 victims descend to madness at a breakneck pace when they realizes the consequences are more dire than they could have ever assumed, and there isn't a way for either of these men to leave in one piece. It's gross, it's lowbrow, it is absolutely edge of your seat horrifying. I think the first one has one of the most off-putting atmospheres I've ever seen in a horror movie. Every inch of that set just looks like it was abhorrently rancid. It looks like it's not even safe to be breathing in there. It just feels jagged and sticky, you know? Like you gotta take a shower after watching. Number 2, Hereditary. Now, it would not be a scariest horror movie list without Hereditary. Hereditary, to date, is the only movie I thought, hey, I might have to walk out of this because I genuinely don't think I can take what's happening. Now, the more likely scenario is that I'm a massive wimp, but the other very likely possibility is that this movie is just gut-wrenchingly terrifying. Hereditary tells us the story of a doomed family seeking to uncover and hopefully break the generational curse placed on them as a gift from their passing matriarch, who seems to have been up to some shadier business than anyone could have known. After a heinously tragic accident, the family finds themselves descending into a web of madness, distrust, and fear. Hereditary is probably one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, and there's barely so much as a jump scare. There's very little in the ways of ghouls, goblins, or ghosts in this one, just itchy fear. That fear of being unable to protect your family, watching it all fall apart, and the age-old fear of wondering if perhaps you've got some sort of ancient, unavoidable satanic curse placed on you and your family. You know, regular stuff. The movie builds agonizingly slowly, leaving you waiting and wondering the entire time if there really is anything supernatural happening or if you're just driving yourself mad wondering while you watch. If you like a slower burn kind of horror movie, then Hereditary is perfect for you. It's full of the kind of nightmarish imagery that isn't leaving you anytime soon, and that's where it scares best, showing you something for just a second or two that you would never want to see in your life, ever, not dwelling on it too long, but just enough to stick in your head like a bad dream, and then appear in your bad dreams every night thereafter. Number 1, Halloween. Okay guys, I'm gonna come clean, I'm gonna be honest. This whole channel is all just a big ruse for me to talk about the Halloween movies. All the other videos are nothing more than a facade for my real goal, to talk about Michael Myers and his sometime sister Laurie Strode. The Megalodon, ghosts, aliens, all my lesser muses. Compared to some other entries on this list, or even its many sequels, the original Halloween is downright tame in terms of blood and gore. In fact, there's actually barely any blood and no gore. A stark contrast to Rob Zombie and David Gordon Green's approach to the boogeyman. The original really focuses on the cat and mouse game between the shape and his obsession, Laurie Strode. Most horror movie protagonists, usually the protagonists, have condemned themselves to some karmic fate. Like I mentioned, the guy from Sinister chose to watch all those scary tapes. The counselors who venture to Camp Crystal Lake every year, despite the warnings, it makes us, the audience, not really feel bad for what's about to happen to them because we know they sealed their doom. But Laurie Strode is a completely innocent bystander to all of it, who just has the unfortunate stroke of bad luck of just happening to be the wrong person standing in the wrong place when Michael sets his eyes on her, spurring a 4-decade-long obsession. That terrifying implication that it could happen to anyone, that the boogeyman could be behind you at any time, making you his next victim solely because you were in the way. Some horror movies from the 70s and 80s start to show their age, but masterful film work like Halloween doesn't. The way the camera lingers on Michael with that haunting synth soundtrack still riles me up to this day. That tension in the air when Michael starts to go after Laurie's friends, first disguising himself in that ghost sheet. Hey. Other movies always walk the line with what Michael is, with some of them offering detailed backstories. Sometimes he's born out of a dark cult, sometimes he had a troubled childhood and no one but Rob Zombie understood him. But in the original, we get the most concise, simple, and effective explanation. He's evil. He's just pure evil behind those black eyes, and that is the scariest answer imaginable.
Number 5. Phoenix Forgotten. Phoenix Forgotten is a 2017 American found footage sci-fi horror directed by Justin Barber in his directorial debut and written by him and T.S. Nolan. Produced by Ridley Scott, the Ridley Scott. The film tells the story of the disappearance of 3 teenagers who set out to find the source of a widely reported 1997 UFO phenomenon known famously as, you guessed it, the Phoenix Lights. We all remember this, don't we? Okay, now the plot. Sophie Bishop and her boyfriend visit Sophie's parents' place in Phoenix, Arizona on the 20th anniversary of her brother's disappearance. In 1997, the family all witnessed the Phoenix Lights during Sophie's 6th birthday, which was, drumroll please, recorded. Several strange lights appear in a formation over the city before being chased by fighter jets. The family is convinced that they have witnessed UFOs via the old recordings, and Sophie now begins to dig a little bit deeper. In the tapes, Sophie's brother Josh begins investigating the Phoenix Lights with the help of his friends Ashley and Mark. Sophie interviews multiple parties regarding the trio's disappearance and the sightings in '97, only to find the group's abandoned car and a camera and one single tape. Sophie views the tape, obviously, showing the beginning of the group's epic journey to find out what caused the Phoenix Lights. We then see what eventually ensues of the poor trio in a horror movie about aliens. Yeah, shocker, right? Or who knows, maybe it has a happy ending. I like this movie a lot for obvious reasons, but it's like really fun, and I like the dated feel with the tapes, you know? As always, dudes, if you like what we do here at Top 5 Scary, throw us a thumbs up down below or even leave us a comment, you know? Number 4, Antrum. Antrum is supposed to be the deadliest movie ever made, and that's what it claims. It's like a fever dream, this movie. Again, not real, but supposedly real. You know? It's a movie. Antrum is proudly a 2018 Canadian horror film. Woo! Go Canada. Written and directed by David Amito and Michael Lacini, the film is divided into 2 parts, an opening and a closing narrative in the form of a mockumentary and a feature film. The mockumentary loosely tells the story of Antrum, a movie released in the late 70s that supposedly had effects on those who watched it. The bulk of the movie then is just kinda moment to moment what kinda happened. Antrum was developed by Amito and Lacini during the development of a separate project in which they were brainstorming scenarios that scared them. Their central idea would later become the basis of Antrum. This idea and concept of what it would be like to watch a supposed, quote, real cursed film. The filmmakers felt like it would make a great horror film, which it does. For the film's occult aspects, the writers studied multiple historical depictions of demons and the devil. It stars Nicole Tompkins and child actor Rowan Smith. Antrum made its world premiere at the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival in October 2018 and was nominated for several awards festival to festival. Uncorked Entertainment acquired North American distribution rights, releasing it on video on demand and pretty well all streaming services since like 2019. It received great reviews who praised its uncomfortable atmosphere, its uncomfortable acting, and creativity. Yeah, they kind of nailed it with this one. It's so 70s. Like, it feels like, again, a fevered night terror. Number 3, As Above, So Below. As Above, So Below is a 2014 American horror film written and directed by John Eric Dowdle and co-written by his brother Drew. The title refers to the popular paraphrase of the second verse of the Emerald Tablet. The film is presented to the audience as found footage, following a documentary's crew's experience exploring the catacombs of Paris. The film was produced by Legendary Pictures and distributed by Universal. The film received negative reviews from critics, but grossed more than $40 million with a huge profit from only a $5 million budget. The plot. Scarlett Marlowe is a scholar continuing her past father's research for the Philosopher's Stone. Scarlett travels to Paris with 2 friends, and using codes from her research, they solve a riddle leading them with coordinates to the catacombs of Paris. They sneak underground and the group wanders the caves. They encounter cultists, ghosts, visions, you name it. They find a Templar, Assassin's Creed looking tomb and see and read some pretty jarring stuff. Statues in the walls come to life, and it goes all Indiana Jones but like scary. The car scene? Like, yeah, what's that about? That's horrifying and downright disturbing. Dude, this movie is gonna leave you gasping for air, literally. But I really liked this movie. It's shot GoPro style, and I love that humid, dingy cave stuff. Look one way in the dark and then the other way. Yeah, I'm just sweating thinking about that scene. Number 2, The Taking of Deborah Logan. It's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, I'm not gonna lie. This movie is horrifying. If you're down for like old witchy ghost lady vibes on a Friday night, and you like jump scares, we got a winner, folks. A 2014 gem. This American found footage supernatural horror film is a first for the director Adam Robidoux, who co-wrote the screenplay. Set in Virginia, it tells the story of a documentary crew making a film about Alzheimer's patients who uncover something sinister while documenting one woman. The film was released right around Halloween time, and you can still catch this on like every streaming service. A team of students who want to create a documentary about Deborah Logan, an elderly woman who has Alzheimer's, films and records her daily life. Then Deb starts to act a little bizarre. They notice that her actions defy normal explanations and express something a little bit more supernatural. Things escalate after they record an audio of Deborah talking about sacrifices and snakes. Oh yeah, like real witchy old lady vibes, I'm telling you. After some talk about an ancient ritual that makes people immortal, some dark cultist kind of stuff, and voila, Deb goes on a spree and tries to kidnap them all. They find out that she has quite the sinister history and that maybe she's not a really good fit for the star of a documentary, more like the star of an exorcism. Yeah, like that kind of stuff, you know? GoPro, night visions, old lady witchy standing in dark corners, good old-fashioned thrillers, you know? Good for the whole family, right before bedtime, in the dark. And the number 1 spot, of course, is The Visit. This movie's kind of like the last movie, with all the witchy vibes, but like way more subtle and way more terrifying. Yeah, I don't like when there's like creepy shit just running around in the background shots, right? Like, that's what scares me the most, the background shots. The Visit is a 2015 American found footage comedy horror film written, produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. The film centers around two young siblings, teenager Becca and her kid brother Tyler, who live with their mother, who's had a pretty gruesome past herself. After finding their grandchildren online and wanting to meet them, the kids' grandparents invite them to spend a week at their farmhouse. Aw, how nice. Like a little Hansel and Gretel type stuff. Exactly. The film was released by Universal Pictures and it grossed about $100 million worldwide, against only a $5 million production budget, so yeah, this one killed it. Good job, guys. But it got mixed reviews though. I don't really know why. This movie's like really scary and well done. The plot. The kiddies are getting ready for a 5-day overnighter at the grandparents while their mother Loretta goes on a cruise as a much needed break. Loretta reveals that she has not spoken to her parents for like 15 years. The teens plan to record a documentary film about their visit using a camcorder. It's shot kind of GoPro style with some classic camera falls on the floor, what's in the background type fun. I'm not going to spoil anything in this movie, but if you like screaming things, crawling around all in the middle of the night, yeah, then this movie's definitely worth a watch. Check it out. Number 5, Incantation. Apparently right now it's the ranking for the most watched non-English horror film worldwide, with over 10 million hours watching and rising. That's pretty sick right there, starting off, you know? Obviously I couldn't leave this one off the list with a reputation like that, so here we go. Incantation is a 2022 Taiwanese found footage supernatural horror film directed by Kevin Ko and co-written by Kevin and Chang Shiwei. Released in Taiwan March 18th, 2022, it became the highest grossing Taiwanese horror film ever made. Yeah, it's received international distribution from Netflix. Hey, Netflix, so good. Since July 8th, 2022. Here's the plot. A woman named Lee Ronan narrates the film, imploring the audience to memorize an insignia and chant an incantation to bless them and lift a curse on her 6-year-old daughter Dodo. The insignia and incantation are interspersed frequently throughout the film to encourage the viewer to pray along with it. Yeah, it's pretty horrifying. Ronan, her boyfriend Dom, and Dom's cousin Yuan break a religious taboo while documenting a ritual for their internet channel. They go to a remote village of Dom and Yuan's relatives who practice a religion worshipping an ancestral deity called Mother Buddha. The clan asks the three to submit their names with the incantation to Mother Buddha. And here we go. That night, the group spy on the clan performing a ritual where a young girl seems to be willingly prepared for sacrifice. The girl, whose body is covered completely head to toe in runes, was left in front of a tunnel which the clan said is forbidden. Ronan waits for the girl while Dom and Yuan enter the tunnel. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's not good. Yuan later emerges screaming and Dawn seemingly lifeless. Ronan and Dodo's house soon becomes infested by unexplained ghostly activities and Dodo is disturbed by a shadowy presence. They bring her to a shrine where a priest agrees to exorcise Dodo. Yunan later becomes possessed and sends copies of the tunnel footage. That's horrifying. Yeah. Just Chuck Liddelling yourself on a computer desk. Yeah, you're definitely gonna need a Tylenol after that one. Ouch. The film ends with some audience participation, and I'm not gonna spoil anything, don't worry, but after watching this, I kinda understand why it's rated what it's rated. Yeah, very scary, but also really good. As always, dudes, if you like what we do here too, hit the like button or leave us a comment down below. Which 2022 horror film has you hiding behind the covers? Number 4, Horror in High Desert. Horror in High Desert is a 2021 American film written, produced, and directed by Dutch Merrick in a pseudo-documentary format featuring found footage elements about the mysterious disappearance of a hiker in Nevada. An experienced outdoorsman vanishes in North Nevada while on an outdoor excursion. On the 3-year anniversary of his disappearance, his friends and loved ones recall the events leading up to the disappearance and for the first time speak about what they think actually happened. The first part focuses on the police report of hiker Gary Hinge. Toward the end of July 2017, Gary hiked to an unspecified area in the Mojave Desert, and the police conduct a search based on the last GPS of location on Gary's cell phone. As time goes by, the media stop reporting, and a private investigator named Bill is asked to investigate so that the case would not be abandoned. The investigation then focuses on clues in the last of the published videos. Gary appears in frame from his home, narrating a very unusual experience experience. The footage found reveals that Gary was able to find his way back to some mystery cabin. There he hears chanting that seems to be human-like, and he eventually is attacked and the camera stops recording. Reporter and the private investigator speculate that who or what might have attacked the hiker. It is mentioned that the police have made this footage public in the hope that someone in the audience might offer some additional clues, which spark a series of theories such as Area 51, atomic testing, satanic rituals, and of course, extraterrestrials. Yeah, that's absolutely horrifying. I didn't even see that thing. They really do a good job at involving the audience in the experience by asking them to help continue the search, which makes the film seem so real but not real at the same time, you know? Hey, great film. And I say aliens, that was definitely an alien, you know? I'm the alien guy, I'm just saying. Number 3, Dashcam. Dashcam is a 2021 computer screen horror film directed by Rob Savage and written by Gemma Hurley, Jed Shepard, and Savage. The entire film is shot from the perspective of the main character's handheld iPhone or the Dashcam in her car as she live streams her actions for viewers whose comments are displayed. Kinda hard to read and watch at the same time, but it really makes it scarier, trust me. The film, of course, is produced by Blumhouse Productions, so you know it's gonna slap. Dashcam premiered at the 2021 Toronto International Film Festival in September 2021, where it was named second runner-up for the People's Choice Award. The plot: Annie Hardy is a right-wing internet personality who live streams from her car, making music and using her viewers' comments as lyrics. Tired of COVID-19 restrictions and homelessness in Los Angeles, Annie books a flight to London. There, she pays a visit to her former bandmate Stretch, who now works as a delivery driver. When she arrives at the restaurant, Annie is surprised to find it abandoned before she encounters the owner, who offers Annie huge money to apparently transport an old woman, Angela, to an undisclosed location. Annie accepts the offer, of course, and drives with Angela while live streaming everything to her fans. And this is where it gets terrifying. Angela then vanishes into a nearby forest, and the group find her standing atop of a tree, to which Angela just floats down to the ground before attacking the group, showing them her supernatural abilities. Angela hunts them down, and after a terrifying scene that I'm not going to spoil, a humanoidish creature emerges out of Angela, where it now hunts for Annie.
Okay, Angela, this lady's gonna just take you to some friends, okay?
Nope.
Yeah, I would be saying a big nope, too. Hell no, I'm not driving some scary old lady in the middle of the night. That's like rookie horror film nonsense right there. Great movie though, great movie. Very scary. Number 2, Spree. Spree is a 2020 American comedy horror film directed by Eugene Kotlyarenko. The gonzo-style satire follows a social media obsessed rideshare driver played by Joe Keery, who we all love. In an attempt to become viral, he live streams himself murdering his passengers. Ooh, it's a challenge of a role, I'd say. The film also stars David Arquette, Kyle Mooney, and Misha Barton. It was executively produced by Drake. That's saying something right there. Spree premiered in 2020 at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival and was released theatrically on video on demand in 2020. The film received mixed reviews, though critics praised Keery's performance and the film's premise. I really like this movie. I think it's a good representation of 2020 culture, you know? With phones in our hand every second, everybody trying to go viral, doing anything you can for clout. This movie does just that. Okay. Here's the plot. A young man named Kurt is obsessed with being a social media star and becoming viral. Kurt finds work as a driver for a rideshare app called Spree, then fits out his car with cameras and begins a new live stream titled The Lesson, where he instructs viewers on how to become famous on social media. Kurt starts picking up passengers one by one and killing them off with poison that he politely offers riders, as well as a bunch of creative clout-chasing, performance heinous acts. You'll see. Kurt is then stopped by 2 police officers who grow suspicious of him. It's revealed that Kurt's murders have already become public, with Kurt being nicknamed the Rideshare Killer. After police are unable to identify him, Kurt tries to flee, but he too is pursued by police, forcing him to crash his car through a homeless camp. With Kurt's murders becoming more well known online, Spree is temporarily shut down to allow an investigation to take place. Kurt tries to kill Jessie, the other character, but she pins him to the wall with her car and then in turn takes his phone and continues the social media presence which he started. Jessie then becomes a nationwide star after taking credit for Kurt's demise and capture surrounding the infamous rideshare killer. Yeah, I really like this movie. It's like super campy and over the top. It's serious at times, but also very gory. Joe Keery kills it with this role, and I feel like if you were needing a break from that Stranger Things character, Yeah, we found it. You did very well, my friend. Very terrifying. And coming in at the number 1 spot, VHS 94. VHS 94 is a 2021 American found footage horror anthology film and the 4th installment in the VHS series. If you haven't seen these movies, they're great. Give them a shot. They're almost shot like a bunch of stories from the same era in one film. Like little mini true or false found footage movies that make the audience ask, is this campy or did this really happen? The film originates from a screenplay written by David Bruckner and Brad Miska. The overarching plot follows a police SWAT team who stumble upon a sinister cult compound and its collection of VHS tapes and what's on them. Following this series' cult origins around film festivals, VHS 94 has its world premiere at Fantastic Fest on September 26, 2021 and was also screened at the Beyond Fest on October 4th the same year. The film was released as a Shudder original film via Shudder, October 6, 2021, and later that month, Shudder announced that it had become the platform's biggest movie premiere in its history, with record-breaking viewership numbers. That's awesome. Horror movies? Let's go. It's great stuff. These films are awesome. Okay, here's some plots. A SWAT team gets a tip and investigates a prison cell-like haunted house with various static screens playing different found footage. The first is a Channel 6 news reporter, Holly Marciano, and her cameraman, Jeff. They are filming a story about the Rat Man, a local legend who has supposedly been living in the town's storm drains. After interviewing several citizens who have reportedly witnessed the creature to gain information, the duo descend into the storm drain where they find several homeless encampments. Where they find several homeless encampments. While filming, they are approached by a man covered in black goop slime, and he murmurs, "Ratma." They attempt to flee, but they are captured by other similar residents of the sewers. Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil anything else because I really like the VHS series and the mini stories that they do. They're absolutely terrifying. The vampire part is the scariest part. I'm not spoiling anything. Check it out.
Number 5, The Conjuring. Now, if you're a fan of this channel, no doubt you know all about Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famed demonologists with a storied career in investigating the paranormal and unknown. You probably knew as well that The Conjuring was based on real events, but how much do you know about the real story that inspired the mega hit? Well, just like the film, in 1971, the Perron family moved into a 14-room farmhouse in Rhode Island with their 5 daughters. Almost as soon as they could start unpacking their things, however, they began to notice bizarre happenings around the home. It all started pretty small, just weird little things. Objects moving, a broom being found in a room different from where it was left. The girls would say that they'd see spirits floating around the halls, but you know how kids are. The mother, Carolyn, researched the house's history to see if there was anything that suggested it was a ground for spiritual activity. She discovered that the house had been home to one family for 8 generations. Not that scary. She also discovered that many members of this family all passed away under mysterious circumstances. Pretty scary. Now, just like the film, they learned at one point the house was owned by a woman named Bethesda, who was thought to be a Satanist and a witch. One of Perron's daughters thought that Bethesda's spirit threatened her mother's presence. And just like in the films, the Warrens found their way to the Perrons and performed a seance to try and speak to Bethesda and claimed they saw Carolyn Perron speaking in tongues during the seance. Now, where the movie differs slightly is that in the film, Ed Warren performs an exorcism and heroically saves the family and cleanses the house. But in the real story, the Warrens were sent away because the Perrons were worried about Carolyn's mental health. They also did not perform an exorcism, as Lorraine Warren said it wouldn't have been appropriate for them as they weren't members of the ministry. The Perrons stayed in the house until 1980, when eventually the hauntings started to go silent. This might be one of the few times a horror movie based on a true story had a happier ending than the real story. Love horror movies? Me too. Stick around at Top 5 Scary for more stuff every day. Let's creep on creeping on. Number 4. The Amityville Horror. Another haunted house story, and wouldn't you know it, another one attached to Ed and Lorraine Warren. If there was a haunted house in the Midwestern United States in the 1970s and they made a movie about it, well, by gum, those 2 names will come up a lot. They were very busy. The Amityville Horror has been made into a movie a few times, first in 1979 and again in 2005, if you can remember that terrible period when Hollywood was dredging up every single horror franchise and rebooting them terribly. Both movies are based on a real-life famous haunting, however, and while details vary between the films pretty wildly, let's see how they stack up against the original case. In 1973, a man named Ronald DeFeo slayed his family in a brutal crime, claiming that he had heard voices that had commanded him to do it, and there was some entity in the house. 13 months later, the Lutz family bought the house. The realtors had warned them about the house's grisly past, but it didn't bother them. You know how the housing market is. A friend of the family told them that it would be wise to have the house blessed since there could still be evil inside the walls. After the family moved in, in, they described all sorts of paranormal wrongdoings going on. Green viscous slime coming up the staircases, voices speaking out to them, telling them to get out, flies all over the house, and the family even seeing wild things like specters. Now that's all pretty bad, but the film adaptations really take it up to the extreme. In the films, the Lutz family faces spirits directly, seeing ghosts, the father even gets possessed and attacks the family dog. Now, nothing this extreme happened in the actual haunting case, but there was a photo that was released that appears to show a ghostly boy walking across a staircase. But there's a lot of discussion as to whether or not it's legitimate, or whether or not anything involving the haunting was legitimate at all, as there are many who feel that it was faked by the Warrens and hyped up a little bit to try and make it a much more interesting story so they could sell books or movies. Well, real or not, it definitely worked, as the book was a smash hit and there have been dozens of movies since, meaning we're not leaving Amityville anytime soon. Number 3. The Exorcism. Now, The Exorcism is an iconic horror movie and legendary story adapted from a novel. Not many people know that the novel and the film were based on a real-life exorcism of a boy named Roland Doe, or so we think, as his real name has never been cleared up. Living in Maryland, Roland lived a quiet, sheltered life, relying on his aunt for company, a noted occultist, and fascinated with the spirit world. She gifted him a Ouija board at a young age. After his aunt passed, it wasn't long before the family home started to experience a series of strange paranormal events. Like it always does, it started a bit small, just objects moving around the house or water leaking from all the pipes in the house, but then eventually it started to ramp up. It seemed like Roland had become possessed. He started to fall mysteriously ill, and red scratches appeared all over the boy's body. The family was put in contact with the clergy, who suggested they needed an exorcist to help them. Now, unfortunately, although in the film, Reagan only needed one exorcism, albeit a brutally rough one, Roland wouldn't be nearly that lucky. Roland was exorcised round the clock for weeks and weeks. Now, he never turned green and vomited up pea soup, nor did he ever twist his head all the way around, but they did report that he would growl gutturally in a voice that wasn't his. He would speak Latin, and even threatened the priests by saying that Satan had taken control of his soul. On one occasion, during an extreme exorcism, he broke free of his restraints when he was tied to a mattress and managed to slash at one of the priests using the buckle, similar to Reagan attacking her exorcisers multiple times in the film. After weeks of battling, eventually like a miracle, Roland woke and said he saw a vision of Saint Michael and Satan battling for his soul. And after that, he was freed. None of the priests were slain like in the film, and luckily after this harrowing experience, Roland was able to live a quiet, normal life and tried his best to live under the radar, not wanting any more attention than he'd already had. After reading about it in a newspaper, author William Blatty was fascinated by the case and inspired to write about an exorcism of his own, which would then become The Exorcism. And then the movie was made, and well, the rest is pretty much history. Number 2. Annabelle. Another famous story from the Warrens' legacy. We knew we'd be seeing them again. Based around probably the most famous and recognizable haunted item in the Warrens' Museum of the Occult, Annabelle. The real Annabelle is a cursed Raggedy Ann doll that was one of the first cases the Warrens ever investigated. Now, the real Annabelle already looks pretty unsettling and isn't the kind of thing I would ever give to a child, but her Hollywood glow-up made her even more terrifying. The story of the film and the legend of the real Annabelle differ pretty greatly though. In the film, Annabelle is given off as a gift from a husband to his pregnant wife, whereas in reality, the Raggedy Ann doll was given to a nursing student, Donna, by her mother as a small gift. The film does feature Donna and her roommate Angie speaking to the Warrens at the beginning, describing their experiences with the doll. That's kind of where the two stories stop being the same and start differing greatly. The original story, Donna claims that the doll would move around their home, appearing in random places, occasionally having red stains on her no one could explain. She would complain that her and her roommate would wake up covered in scratches, again, no one could explain. They said they would find notes scrawled in red writing across the home, reading cryptic things like "Help us" or "Help Lou," the name of Donna's roommate's fiance. The most extreme thing any of them ever reported was that Donna's fiance claims one night while staying over, he felt something crawling on his leg, and when he looked to see what it was, he saw Annabelle on his leg and claims the doll leapt up at him. He woke up the next morning completely unsure if what he had experienced was real or not. Now from there, they contacted a medium to arrange a seance to see if they were dealing with something truly evil. From here, the Warrens were put in contact to help them and take Annabelle off their friends. While the real story is no doubt spine-chilling, the movie got a lot more dramatic, involving satanic cults, deaths, house fires, and a whole lot more. But still, I probably wouldn't want to spend any time near the real Annabelle, just in case. Number 1. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven was a master of horror. I don't think it is completely fair to call him a visionary and an icon of the craft, giving us not just one, but two legendary classic horror movie franchises, A Nightmare on Elm Street and the satirical horror movie series Scream. Freddy Krueger is larger than life as a horror icon. He's incredibly popular, appearing in several of his own movies, even coming into some of Jason's movies, starring in a couple video games as a playable character in Mortal Kombat and Dead by Daylight. A horribly burned dream-invading ghoul, manifesting people's worst fear and attacking them in a place no one can help them and no one can believe them. He's terrifying, but by gosh do we love him. It's no wonder Freddy's had such scary staying power. But I bet you didn't know Wes Craven was inspired by a real-life horror story for Freddy. Don't worry, there's no real-life groundskeepers that were cast into a furnace, at least I think. Wes Craven was reading the LA Times one morning and he read an article that pierced him and stuck with him. It was about a refugee family that fled to the United States for the fear of their lives. The son of the family was plagued by nightmares and said that he was too afraid to sleep. When he finally found himself falling asleep in the middle of the night, he was screaming and passed away during a nightmare. This spoke to Wes Craven deeply, who sympathized that he was too afraid to sleep and no one would listen to his worries, and saddened at the idea of something that would attack someone while they were vulnerable and away from the protection of supervisors and guardians. From that tragic story, Freddy Krueger was born as a manifestation of this horrible concept that affected Wes Craven so deeply, trying to conjure up the most evil thing he could think of. Since then, Freddy's become a pop culture icon and is not without his legions of fans, but few know the true story behind the iconic slasher. That's all for this video, my little ghouls and goblins. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Number 5. Fresh. I decided to start this list off light, so obviously a movie about a human meat business. Fresh. The movie opens up to Noah on a date with a seriously insufferable man, like the thin scarf and everything. Noah later meets a guy at a grocery store, Steve, and they hit it off immediately. Ironically, there's actually a fresh meat sign hanging right over the scene, which, you know, it's not funny, but it kind of is. Anyway, the two end up going on a date where the pair get to know about each other. Family, friends, connections, people who would go searching for her, you know, date topics. The pair strike up a fast and intense romance, and in just a couple of days, Steve invites Noah on a vacation to a surprise location. Noah hesitantly agrees, and they leave. Noah only tells her close friend that she's going, but Noah doesn't even have an address to give her because, hey, it's a surprise. Steve and Noah drive for hours. Noah notices how far they're going, but doesn't mention any discomfort. In fact, she even gets an address to where they're going, which she tells her friend. Steve tells her that they're going to stop at his house for the night and finish the drive in the morning. They arrive at Steve's desolate modern house, where Steve pours Noah a drink. Noah asks for the Wi-Fi, saying there's still no service, and Steve answers, "It must have gone out again." What? That wasn't the question, sir. He asks Noah to guess the flavors of her drink, which we all know is to get her to drink more of the spiked drink, and she ends up passing out. She wakes up in a large room, chained to a bed on the floor. Steve explains to her that his job is to kidnap women, do surgery on them to remove pieces of their flesh, and then to sell the meat to paying customers. Obviously, the lives of the women are then ended, and they slowly dwindle away into nothingness. Noah is able to speak to another woman that is there and discusses how long they've been there. But it's also revealed that Steve has an affinity for Noah, much like another woman who had written secret notes in magazines provided by Steve. Steve takes her out of her room for specially prepared meals which contained, you guessed it, human flesh. Back in the city, Noah's friend begins investigating her disappearance, eventually stumbling upon Steve's home in the city. There it is found out that he has a wife, who's missing a leg, who helps him with the business. Noah is able to build trust between her and Steve, and eventually he lets his guard down enough for her to make a move towards escaping. She ends up biting off his, before running out onto the property. Noah's friend is able to find the house, and Steve's wife begins to hunt Noah down, but is unsuccessful. Steve and his wife end up passing, and Noah frees herself and the other girl there. God, I'm never going on a first date again. Number 4. Climax. This is by far one of the strangest yet most captivating movies I have ever had the pleasure to watch. It follows a dance group in France who are having a rehearsal and party before a performance. But about 30 minutes into the movie, everyone begins acting strange, and it's revealed that somebody spiked the punch with LSD. The movie opens with a myriad of interviews, introducing many characters and their reason for dancing. Then the movie shows the rehearsal and party, and then people started to realize that they were all acting weird, like tripping weird. I mean, people reacted as expected. Some people attempted to leave, only to find out the doors were locked. Some people began to have fun, while others were freaking out. Chaos seriously ensues. People are crying and screaming, amidst others who were dancing and enjoying their time profusely. One girl is set on fire. A young person whose mother danced there locked themselves in a bathroom and got electrocuted. Relationships began and ended, while others began to sleep with each other. Even, I'm not gonna say it directly, but a brother and a sister were in this movie. The group begins to turn on each other, accusing people of spiking the punch, but no one is ever able to come to a conclusion. You know, their attention spans aren't very long. The movie continues to pan around the building, showing the interactions everyone is having with themselves, the people around them, and the new hidden world that only they can see. Eventually, the group came down and saw that it was morning. They also found the previously locked door unlocked. The entire film is filled to the brim with amazing camera shots, acting, and dance sequences. It is truly a piece of artwork. Disturbing artwork, but artwork. The film's very last scene is a girl dropping liquid LSD into her eye. I'm not going to tell you who it is because the mystery of not knowing who it is creates such amazing suspense as you watch the movie. Number 3, Troll 2. Okay. I couldn't help myself. I had to add this movie in. Although it's not disturbing in the traditional horror sense, the acting, effects, and dialogue are surely enough to leave a viewer unsettled and confused. It has time control, teleportation, magic, an erotic popcorn scene, and as my mother put it, the whole movie seems as though it was directed by a 5-year-old and written by a 4-year-old. Troll 2 was made in 1990, but it seems like it was made in the 60s. I have never watched a horror movie that elicited such frustration yet amazement into my very core. The movie follows a family who decide to take an exchange vacation to Nilbog, a small desolate town. Upon arriving, the family realizes that its residents aren't what they first seemed to be. Yes, they did seem to be inhuman to the viewer, but somehow the family was blissfully unaware. The son, Joshua, keeps seeing his recently deceased grandfather, who everybody constantly calls Grandpa Seth. Yes, everyone. Grandpa Seth loves to tell Joshua stories of goblins. The sister, I honestly don't remember her name, is in a, I don't know if I can call it a relationship with a boy. She's upset that the boy has friends, and she also mentions that her family hates him. But 2 seconds later, she invites him to go on their vacation, saying that her family would be fine with it. I know, it doesn't make sense. The boyfriend decides to take an RV with all of his friends to Nilbog, meeting the family there. In the car, a weird dream sequence occurs. Josh sees Grandpa Seth on the side of the road, and for some reason, his parents stop the car and allow him to run up to the man. It is then revealed that the man is just a random decrepit man, and only Joshua saw him as Grandpa Seth. And the family gently ask him to return to the car. No sense of concern whatsoever for their young child who is running up to a strange man on the side of the highway. Upon arriving in Nilbog, the family is greeted by the owners of the house they will be staying in, and oh my god. I don't even know how to explain the interaction besides, no, I actually have no words. They enter the house and there is a feast laid out for them, but Joshua's grandpa Seth appears outside a window and tells him that he can't let his family eat the food, which is covered in a green oozing liquid. So Grandpa Seth freezes time, and Joshua comes up with a great idea to stop his family from eating the food. He pees on the table. Yes. That was actually the only thing he could come up with to prevent his family from eating, while he was frozen in time, peeing on the table. And no, nobody questions how he seemingly teleported from the window to standing on top of the table. Instead, they lock him in his room. It turns out that the people in the town are actually all goblins. And guys, Nilbog is goblin backwards. What? They're trying to turn humans into plants so that they can eat them. The entire movie is just filled with the town residents trying to get the families to eat. Also, Grandpa Seth dies like 5 times in the movie, and then he just keeps coming back. He also goes to hell for a second. The boys' friends turn into trees from the Goblin Queen, and there's a lot of scenes with people flailing at a slightly increased speed in one direction. Some may try to call it running, but no. these people were not running. I'm not sure what they were doing. The goblins also looked like they were played by slow-moving children. In fact, the costumes also looked like they were made by children. You know what? The whole movie seems to have been made by children, and not impressive film prodigy children, like preschool children who are progressing as they're supposed to. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. I honestly could do a whole video on this, but I'm aware that we're not talking about horribly fantastic horror movies today, so I'll get back to the list. I really beg of you to please watch Troll 2. No, there's zero storyline connection to Troll. And in fact, there actually aren't any trolls in the movie, but please watch it because I could easily do an entire video just talking about Troll 2, and I would love for you guys to really understand what I'm talking about. Number 2, Flowers in the Attic. Okay, so I haven't actually watched this movie, but I have read the book. And the fact that it was made into a movie is upsetting to say the least. This movie includes the imprisonment of young siblings for years and eventually leads to, a twisted attraction forming. The plot begins with a family's father passing away in a car accident. After a couple of weeks, the mother tells her 4 children that they will be moving in with her very rich but estranged parents, and that they would be leaving immediately with only 4 suitcases. Upon arrival, the children are greeted by their grandmother, who is a tall, sophisticated, and stern-looking woman. She leads them in through a darkened back entrance up to a small room. The mother tells the group of children that they will be staying in the room until their grandfather forgives her for marrying her half-uncle. Yes, I'm glazing over that, but once she and her father make amends, she will introduce all of the children and they will live lavishly in the grand mansion forever. The children were required to stay quiet, but they were able to play in the large attic that was attached to the room, and they would be brought food once a day. But things aren't as they seem. The group would end up staying in the attic for over 3 years. The oldest 2, Chris and Kathy, took care of their younger siblings and attempted to bring joy and learning into their imprisonment. They would decorate the attic. Chris and Kathy's relationship developed into, I'm not going to say it, but I'm sure you can figure out what I'm not saying. Chris and Kathy first left the room with permission from their mother to watch a lavish holiday party that was taking place at the mansion. The next time they left the room was 3 years later, when they scaled down the side of the house and swam in a nearby pond. After years of their mother lying to them, they found out that her father had passed away years before, but wouldn't let them out of the room because of a clause in the inheritance she had received from her father. If it was revealed that she'd birthed children from her late husband, she would have to forfeit all of her money. Honestly, I'm kind of siding with the grandfather on this one. So, when the group figures that their mother never plans to release them, they decide to escape. In preparation for their escape, Chris and Kathy created a copy of the key left in the room at night to steal money from their mother. Most of the children do manage to escape, and this leads into the 8-book series. Yes, there are 8 of these books. I would love to say that I wouldn't recommend them, but the writing is actually really good. Number 1, Human Centipede. Yeah, I know everyone is expecting Human Centipede, but that's just because it's Human Centipede. It's so upsetting, it's so disgusting. I don't even want to talk about it. You know what? No, I refuse. I'm changing my mind. I'm not gonna talk about it. And honestly, I don't even think I can on this channel. Number 1.5, Creep. Yeah, this movie is disturbing. Never have I ever watched a movie that left me with such a disgusted, sinking feeling. Creep follows an amateur filmmaker, Aaron, who was hired to film a documentary for a man who is dying of a terminal illness and wanted to leave something behind for his son. Aaron drove out to a secluded house in the woods to meet Joseph, the man, and Joseph starts off his documentary strong. He asks Aaron to film him in the bathtub, scrub-a-dubbing and speaking of how sad he is that he will never meet his son. Then Aaron is scared by a realistic wolf mask, which Joseph tells him is named Peach Fuzz. Yes, Aaron stays. Then the pair go on a walk through the woods, alone, and Joseph keeps sneaking up and scaring Aaron. But it kinda seems like Aaron is warming up to Joseph. Joseph claims he just has a weird sense of humor. The two go to a diner and share a dinner that quickly turns very strange. Yes, even stranger. Joseph confesses that he had taken photos of Aaron before they had met, and that he had an animal within who is ready to kill. Back at the house, Aaron is ready to leave, but Joseph asks him to stay for a drink, and yeah, Aaron ends up staying. I know. Two have a drink, and Joseph shares some incredibly disturbing information with Aaron regarding his Peach Fuzz mask and his wife. Aaron puts something in Joseph's drink, takes his phone, and decides to call Joseph's wife in a hiding spot. Aaron is told that she is not his wife, she's his sister, and that Joseph does not have a terminal illness, and he doesn't have a son. She warns him to leave immediately. Freaked out, Aaron headed to leave, but when he exited his hiding place, Joseph was nowhere to be seen. Aaron, for some reason, looks around the house, like on the patio. Then Joseph sneaks up and scares Aaron, then says that he doesn't want to die. before running off. Aaron walks down the stairs to leave and finds Joseph wearing his peach fuzz mask and gyrating against the door. Aaron charges towards him, and then the camera cuts. We next see Aaron back at home complaining about receiving mailed gifts and videos from Joseph. Joseph sent Aaron a video of him burying large garbage bags in his yard. He sent a box containing a stuffed bear and a blade, or a stuffed wolf and a blade, and finally another video of Joseph apologizing for the first video. Aaron ripped open the wolf and he found a locket with both of their pictures inside of it. He throws everything away. The police provide no help or surveillance. One night, Aaron hears someone rummaging through the trash, and the viewers see Joseph standing at the front door. Another night, Joseph sneaks into Aaron's house and films Aaron while he sleeps. Soon after, Aaron finds another video of Joseph where Joseph explains how he found the locket in the garbage and how he wants Aaron to meet him by the lake for closure. You're probably thinking, of course Aaron won't go. No, he goes. He sets up his camera on and sits on a bench facing the water. Then, in his peach fuzz mask, Joseph comes up behind Aaron and ends his life with an axe. The movie closes with Joseph placing a tape labeled Aaron with a little heart on a shelf full of tapes just like it. He's heard on the phone introducing himself as Bill, requesting the exact same services that he had requested from Aaron. And yes, there is a creep too.
Number 5, Fire in the Sky. Based on the book The Walton Experience by Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky is set in 1975 and follows a logger named, Travis Walton, played by D.B. Sweeney from Arizona, who allegedly had a flying saucer experience that caused him to abruptly vanish for 5 days. His co-workers experienced mockery and disdain while being falsely charged with, killing. But allow me to back up and elaborate on the real story. Back in 1975, a forestry worker named, Travis Walton, was working in the area of Snowflake, Arizona, when a saucer-shaped craft with a high-pitched buzz entered their field of vision. Quick sidebar, the irony of a place in a hot state like Arizona being called Snowflake is hilarious to me. So Walton says that after he left the truck and approached the object, a beam of light suddenly appeared from the craft and knocked him unconscious. The other 6 men on the project were supposedly frightened and drove away. Walton says that he awoke in a hospital-like room being observed by 3 short, bald creatures. He says that he fought with them until a human wearing a helmet led him to another room, where he blacked out as 3 other humans put a clear plastic mask over his face. Now, Walton has said that he remembers nothing else until he found himself walking along a highway 5 days later, with the flying saucer departing above him. So, on that same day, he appeared in town in a phone booth, surprising his employees who had fled, believing him to be dead. He alleges that extraterrestrials abducted him and examined him in that space that resembled that hospital. In the days following his UFO claim, the National Enquirer awarded Walton and his co-workers a $5,000 prize for Best UFO Case of the Year, after they were said to have passed polygraph tests administered by the Enquirer and the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, or APRO for short. You know how much I like my short forms. Walton, his older brother, and his mother were described by the Navajo County, Arizona sheriff as longtime students of UFOs. According to experts, all of the co-workers who weren't there, who saw the spacecraft, all took polygraph tests and all passed, except for one that was inconclusive. Which, you know what happens. It's a good ratio though. So in 1978, Walton wrote his book, with the same title as the movie, detailing his claims, which became the basis for Fire in the Sky. Paramount Pictures decided that his account was too fuzzy and too similar to other televised close encounters, so they ordered a screenwriter to write a flashier, more provocative abduction story. Fire in the Sky grossed $19.9 million domestically on a $15 million budget and received mixed reviews. It was nominated though for 4 Saturn Awards, so that's pretty cool. Nevertheless, its alien abduction scenes are considered by many to be highly effective. In 2017, Pace named Fire in the Sky as one of the 25 best science fiction films on Netflix. I know what I'm watching tonight. Number 4, Hangar 10. So the Rendlesham UFO incident, which was released in the US as Hangar 10, is a 2014 found footage style British horror film directed by Daniel Simpson. It stars Danny Shaler, Abby Salt, and Robert Curtis as 3 friends who become lost in the Rendlesham forest and discover evidence of UFO activity decades after the original incident. It premiered at the Colchester Film Festival on the 22nd of October in 2014 and was released in the UK on February 9th of 2015. But before we get to the movie stuff, let's talk about the real story. So the Rendlesham Forest incident was a series of reported sightings of unexplained lights near the forest in Suffolk, England in December of 1980, which became linked with UFO landings. Now these events occurred just outside RAF Woodbridge, which was used at the time by the United States Air Force, or USAF for short. USAF personnel, including Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, claimed to see things they described as UFOs. The occurrence is the most famous of UFO events to have ever happened in the United Kingdom and is among the best known reported UFO events worldwide, sometimes called Britain's Roswell. The UK Ministry of Defence has stated that the event posed no threat to national security, so it was never investigated as a security matter, but what do they know that we don't? At around 3 a.m. on December 26 of 1980, good old Boxing Day, a security patrol near the east gate of RAF Woodbridge saw lights apparently descending into the forest and initially thought it was a downed aircraft. According to a memo, upon entering the forest to investigate, the servicemen witnessed a glowing object that was metallic in appearance with, colored lights. As they attempted to approach the object, it appeared to move through the trees, and the animals on a nearby farm went into quite the frenzy. One of the servicemen, Sergeant Jim Peniston, later claimed to have encountered a craft of unknown origin while in the forest, but never elaborated on the details. Shortly after 4, the local police were called to the scene, but reported that the only lights they could see were those from the Orford Ness lighthouse, many miles away on the coast. After daybreak on that same morning, servicemen returned to a small clearing near the eastern edge of the forest and found 3 small impressions on the ground in a triangular pattern, as well as burn marks and broken branches on nearby trees. At 10:30, the local police were called out yet again, this time to see the impressions, which, they originally thought could have been made by an animal. Not any animal I know. The deputy base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, the one I mentioned before, visited the site with several servicemen in the early hours, taking radiation readings in the triangle of depressions and in the surrounding area using an AN-PDR-27, which is apparently a standard US military radiation survey meter. Although they recorded 0.07 milliroentgens per hour, in other regions they detected 0.03 to 0.04, and which is around the background level. I'm not saying that word again. Furthermore, they detected a similar small burst for half a mile away from the landing site. It was during this investigation that a flashing light was seen across a field to the east, almost in line with a farmhouse, as the witnesses had seen on the first night. Later, according to Holt's memo, 3 star-like lights were seen in the sky, 2 to the north and 1 to the south. Later, according to Holt's memo, 3 star-like lights were seen in the sky, 2 to the north and 1 to the south, about 10 degrees above the horizon. He said that the brightest of these hovered for 2 to 3 hours and seemed to beam down a stream of light from time to time. So, let's get to the movie version. 33 years after the incident, 3 metal detector enthusiasts hunting for sacks and gold in the same region capture incredible footage of UFOs while filming their expedition. In classic horror movie tropes, their UFO detecting equipment fails, and they meet some pretty scary UFOs. The movie isn't well rated, but I never promised Hollywood blockbusters. Now did I? Number 3, Phoenix Forgotten. So this is a 2017 American found footage science fiction horror film directed by Justin Barber in his directorial debut, and written by Barber and T.S. Nowlin. The film is also produced by Nowlin alongside Ridley Scott, Wes Ball, Courtney Solomon, and Mark Canton. Originally advertised as Phoenix, the film tells the story of the disappearance of 3 teenagers who set out to find the source of the widely reported 1997 UFO phenomenon known as the Phoenix Lights. It was released on April 21st of 2017 to some negative reviews, with many critics unfavorably comparing it to the Blair Witch Project. So, what really happened in real life? On March 13th of 1997, at 7:55 p.m. MST, a witness in Henderson, Nevada, reported seeing a large, V-shaped object traveling southeast. At 8:15 p.m., an unidentified former police officer in Paulden, Arizona, reported seeing a cluster of reddish-orange lights disappear over the southern horizon. Shortly afterwards, there were reports of lights seen over the Prescott Valley in Arizona. Tim Lay and his wife Bobby, his son Hal, and his grandson Damien first saw the lights when they were about 105 kilometers away from them. At first, the lights appeared to them as 5 separate and distinct lights in like an arc shape, as if they were on top of a balloon, but they soon realized the lights appeared to be moving towards them. So over the next 10 or so minutes, the lights appeared to come closer. The distance between the lights increased, eventually taking on the shape of an upside-down V. Eventually, when the lights appeared to be a couple of miles away, families said that they could make out a shape that looked like a 60-degree carpenter's square. I'm not even gonna try with that one. With 5 lights set into it, with 1 at the front and 2 on each side. Soon the object with the embedded lights appeared to be moving towards them, at about 100 to 150 feet above them, traveling so slowly that it gave the appearance of a silent hovering object, which seemed to pass over their heads and went through a V opening in the peaks of the mountain range towards a nearby mountain and also towards the direction of the Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. Between 8:30 and 8:45 p.m., witnesses in Glendale, which is northwest of Phoenix, saw the light formation pass overhead at an altitude high enough to become obscured by the thin clouds. Amateur astronomer Mitch Stanley in Scottsdale, Arizona, also observed the high altitude lights flying in formation through a telescope, and according to him, they were quite clearly individual airplanes. At approximately 10 p.m. that same evening, a large number of folks in the Phoenix area reported seeing a row of brilliant lights hovering in the sky, or slowly falling. A number of photos and videos were taken, prompting author Robert Schaefer to describe it as possibly the most widely witnessed UFO event in history. Number 2, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The movie depicts the tale of Roy Neary, played by Richard Dreyfuss, Dreyfus, a common blue-collar worker from Indiana, whose life changes as a result of coming into contact with an alien craft. In another parallel story, the team follows a team of study experts with diverse backgrounds looking at the odd appearance of objects in remote places, mainly desert areas. So Close Encounters of the Third Kind genuinely draws inspiration from several different sources, including real people's encounters with UFOs, unlike the other movies on today's list that are based on a single event. Director Steven Spielberg hired Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a distinguished astronomer who created the UFO classification system from which the movie gets its name, to accurately portray the UFO sightings. So Hynek acted as scientific advisor to UFO studies undertaken by the US Air Force under 3 projects: Project Sign, Project Grudge, and the very well-known Project Blue Book. If you don't know it, I recommend looking it up, it's fascinating. So his classification for UFO sightings, according to increasing proximity, starts with nocturnal lights, which is pretty straightforward, simply lights in the night sky, and then it escalates to daylight discs, which are UFOs seen in the daytime and generally have disc or oval shapes. Next up, we've got radar visual. These are the UFO reports that have radar confirmation, offering harder evidence that the objects are real. Although I have to admit that radar propagation can be occasionally discredited due to atmospheric propagation anomalies. Now for the fun stuff. Close Encounters of the First Kind, which are visual sightings of an unidentified flying object seemingly less than 500 feet away that show an appreciable angular extension and considerable detail. This is followed by Close Encounters of the Second Kind, a UFO event in which a physical effect is alleged. This can be interference in the functioning of a vehicle or electronic device, animals reacting, a physiological effect such as paralysis or heat and discomfort in the witness, or some physical trace like impressions in the ground, scorched or otherwise affected vegetation, or a chemical trace. Finally, we have Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which are UFO encounters in which an animated entity is present. These include humanoids, robots, and humans who seem to be occupants or pilots of a UFO. Number 1, Battle Los Angeles. This movie tells the story of a global extraterrestrial invasion as witnessed by a Marine platoon attempting to defend Los Angeles. So the battalion has to fight its way out of the city as it is being looted by aliens because things don't go as planned by either party. The film story was partially inspired by the Battle of Los Angeles, which was a rumored enemy attack and subsequent anti-aircraft artillery barrage that took place in, LA during World War II on the night of February 24th of 1942. The incident occurred a day after the bombardment of Elwood, when an Imperial Japanese submarine launched shells at US aviation fuel tanks. West Coast tensions were already running high in the months after the December 1941 Pearl Harbor attack and entry of the US into the Second World War. Eyewitnesses and radar data reported an unknown aerial craft over the LA area on February 24th, leading to fears of a Japanese attack on the US mainland. But a review of the incident found no proof of Japanese presence in the area and attributed the incident to aliens. This very real incident was used as the main focus of an early teaser trailer to promote the film, in which it strongly implied that the alien invaders spent decades planning their attack and invasion. The filmmakers drew upon this historical event in an attempt to help ground the film in reality and to make it, as scary as possible. And that brings us to the end of our list, and hey, is anyone else in the mood for an alien movie marathon? Yeah, as usual, just me, eh? Well, if you enjoyed my ramblings today, could you help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing if you aren't already, hit the bell for more from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.
Number 5 on this list is Atuk. This movie isn't one that you're going to be able to find on Netflix or anything like that, and let me tell you why. Insider says if you've never heard of Atuk, that's because this movie was so cursed, it never actually got made. Ironically, it wasn't even supposed to be a scary movie. A comedy about an Inuit hunter using traditional techniques to survive in an urban environment. It's not the movie you would immediately suspect is ripe for a cursing. Yet, many of the actors who were signed on to play the lead role have died prematurely, including John Belushi, Chris Farley, and John Candy. Actors who were cast in supporting roles weren't immune either, with Phil Hartman also facing a violent and tragic early end after being attached to the film. It's definitely a bit of a stretch to suggest that this movie was somehow involved in the deaths of these actors, but it is quite an incredible coincidence that they all met an early demise after getting involved. In any case, it's certainly interesting that multiple attempts to develop and produce this movie have never come to fruition. I think it's also certainly interesting that people who keep trying to make this movie keep freaking dying. Like, why is this happening? I understand that it seems like a bit of a stretch to say this movie has anything to do with it, but
what the heck else could it be? How many times did just a bunch of people start doing a thing and dying right when they start it? Like, I feel as if this doesn't happen that often, guys, and somehow, some way, this movie or maybe the script has something to do with it. Maybe the director or the producer or the writer of this movie is cursed, and that's why they were never able to actually get it done. Rest in peace to everyone who tried to make this thing. I'm sure it would have been a funny movie, but I think it's best for everyone involved if we call it quits before more people end up getting hurt. Number 4 on this list is The Conjuring. They haven't been able to make a movie in this series yet without something going wrong. Insider says pretty much every movie in the Conjuring universe has had some spooky happenings on set. Based loosely on the real experiences of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, all Conjuring movies were absolutely terrifying. There have been so many reports of strange and paranormal happenings on the sets, it's hard to pick just one. They're all equally creepy. Annabelle had reports of light fixtures falling on actors, and The Conjuring had actors finding mysterious bruises on their bodies. But the paranormal activity on the set of The Nun was especially interesting because this is one of the few cases where there was just a good old-fashioned haunting on the set. Director Corin Hardy stated that he encountered 2 spirits while filming on location at a fortress in Romania. He stepped into a room while the cameras were rolling and found 2 people he assumed were crew members. When the camera stopped rolling and he turned around, they were gone. This one isn't exactly fair, I guess, because yeah, they were ghost encounters on set, but they were also shooting on location in a very old fortress, so it's very possible those ghosts were there for other reasons and the movie was just also happening to film at that location. Still, having a direct encounter with a ghost on the set of a horror movie you're directing is enough to unsettle anyone. Whether they were from the castle or from the movie, it really doesn't matter to me. All that matters is that they were there, and that is enough to make anyone freak the heck out. Next time you watch the Conjuring movies, you can walk into it knowing that there was also something else afoot other than the spooky stuff on screen. Number 3 on this list is Poltergeist. Of course, one of the scariest horror movies has one of the scariest sets. Insider says Poltergeist is a creepy movie, sure, but it doesn't have the shock value of R-rated horror movies. The visual effects haven't exactly held up well, and plenty of horror films get made without any unusual happenings. So why, might you ask, would the set of Poltergeist have been haunted? Look no further than the props. As it was far too expensive to make realistic looking rubber and plastic skeletons, they opted to use real human skeletons on set for the scene in which actress Jo Beth Williams is pulled into the mud of her swimming pool by a bunch of skeletons. Honestly, this seems like a reckless move. You're just asking to be cursed, and cursed it was. In the scene in which a clown puppet gets possessed and strangles the Freeling's young son, Robbie, things went awry. During the filming of the scene, the mechanical clown puppet that was created to simulate the strangulation malfunctioned and actually started choking the actor during a take. Writer-producer Steven Spielberg had to jump in and rescue the child actor from his inanimate attacker. This obviously raised some red flags to the people working on the set and paranormal experts, but rumors really started spiraling when several of the people who worked on the film died pretty much right after they were done filming. 2 of the cast members from the original died right after they finished the movie, and then 2 more cast members died in a similar timeline after filming the sequels. Nowadays, people are scared about making another sequel because of whatever it is that's going on. Maybe it wasn't just a mechanical malfunction when that clown started going off after all. Number 2 on this list is The Exorcist. This is often considered one of the scariest movies of all time. Insider says The Exorcist has a reputation for being one of the scariest movies of its time, perhaps of all time. If any movie was haunted or cursed in reality, it'd have been this one. There were tons of things that went wrong on set, from set malfunctions to 2 different actresses sustaining significant injuries during stunts gone wrong. This led many to believe that there was some malicious entity on set giving filmmakers a hard time. Perhaps the biggest evidence of supernatural meddling was a suspicious fire that forced the production to rebuild much of the set. It was theorized that a bird flew into some electrical equipment on set, but the resulting fire destroyed a large section of the set while mysteriously leaving Reagan's room set alone. If you've seen The Exorcist, you know that that room was the area the demon most frequently occupied in the film. The superstition around this film is so great, some believe it's dangerous to even play the movie. Doing so invites negative entities toward you, as the urban legend goes, similar to using a Ouija board. When the fear literally extends all the way to people even watching the movie, that's when you know that something is seriously up. I personally think that something paranormal had to be going on here. Maybe the reason that the movie was so scary and blew so many people away is because they managed to capture some of the real evil energy. Maybe that's why every time people watch it, it just spooks us to our cores. Obviously, it's just a theory, but it might make sense. Number 1 on this list is The Omen. This movie was just doomed from the start. Screen Rant says, The Omen is yet another film that is notorious for having a haunted production. To start off, the original star of the film, Gregory Peck, and executive Mark Newfield both traveled in planes that were struck by lightning. Peck then shot himself in the head a few months before shooting was set to start. One scene was filmed at a zoo, which focuses on the reactions of baboons. The baboons were so wild that an animal trainer had to be brought on set, but the animal trainer died the next day after a tiger got hold of his head. One of the special effects technicians named John Richardson got into a car accident about a month after the film was released, and while he survived, his passenger Liz Moore was beheaded. What the heck? It seems like everything that could have possibly went wrong did in fact go wrong for this movie. Like, we had multiple people who didn't even make it to the set for multiple reasons. I personally have never seen The Omen before, so if you've watched it, please let me know in the comments. What the heck was it about this movie that would have set something off? And was it clear that something was wrong while you were watching the movie? I'd love to hear it. Number 5 on this list is The Crow, a 1994 gothic horror superhero movie that's earned quite the cult following since its release. Similarly to some of our other entries on this list, it had one of the most tragic filming processes ever. Slash Film writes, The Crow had a slow and rocky production. According to Cursed Films, during pre-production, a mysterious figure called the offices and left a voicemail asking production to stop. This was followed by multiple tragedies. An electrician was badly burned, others were injured, then Lee died as the film was finishing filming, shot by accident when a prop gun malfunctioned. Since the film was late in production, the person responsible for handling weapon safety wasn't around to supervise the scene and wasn't able to ensure that all props were safe to use. Lee's scenes were completed by using a mixture of body doubles and then revolutionary CGI, but the film kept that charged and sad legacy, which has become impossible to separate from the story itself. Who was that mysterious figure, and how did they know something bad was gonna happen? People have speculated that the phone call that was made was from a spirit from the other side. They believe that by going against the spirit and not doing what it said resulted in the tragedies that occurred. This could also be the curse that affects you if you watch this movie. A few people have reported getting a strange call a few days after seeing this film from an undisclosed number. The phone call will start super weirdly and will eventually tell them to stop doing something in their life. Just like what happened with the movie, if they continue to do whatever they were told not to, bad things will occur. Number 4 on this list is The Innkeepers. The Innkeepers is a really interesting one. You see, this movie is cursed based on where it was shot. Slash Film says, interestingly, West, who was the director of the movie, decided to make the film after hearing that the hotel where his crew stayed while shooting his previous film, The House of the Devil, was haunted. Well, the hotel that inspired the film is actually in the film, said West in an interview with IndieWire. The staff at the hotel believe it's haunted. The whole town believes it's haunted, so it has this kind of mystique quality to it. While West said that he's a skeptic and doesn't believe in ghosts, he and the cast lived in the hotel for the duration of the shooting, and he did see some doors opening and closing and TVs turning on and off, and mentioned that everyone who was sleeping there had very vivid dreams. Sarah Paxton, the star of the film, said that at nights her door would also violently fly open. It might just be because this is a scary movie and people get scared, but some people have reported similar occurrences happening in their home after they watch this movie, as if the haunting that happened at that hotel where they shot it somehow comes into the space where the movie is played. I'm not sure how much of this one I believe, but they did film it at an actual haunted location, so you never know. Number 3 on this list is Rosemary's Baby. One of the scariest movies of all time, might be one of the most cursed of all time, and this curse might even affect you when you watch it. Slash Films writes, at a party, the film's composer, Christoph Komeda, fell off a rocky slope and into a coma that he never recovered from, similar to the actions that the witches take in the novel to get rid of Rosemary's friend. Then there's also the story of Sharon Tate, Roman Polanski's wife. Reportedly, Tate auditioned repeatedly for the role of Rosemary, which ended up going to Pharaoh. She makes a background appearance in one of the film's scenes. While the film was still in theaters, Tate was killed in her home by followers of Charles Manson. At the time, she was pregnant. All of these events stoked the fear and the interest of the public, giving the film a bump in popularity and an infamous reputation. Levin himself said that he had mixed feelings about the film, claiming that while it gave him access to exclusive literary circles, it also helped popularize the occult and Satanism, which was prevalent during that time period. There was obviously something going on with the creation of this movie, and people believe that it can also be passed over to the viewer. Clearly, tragedy was involved when this movie was being made, and some sort of spirit or some sort of demonic omen was afoot. That tragic luck will, in rare cases, come in the form of a curse to somebody who watches this movie. This could all be fake Reddit stuff, but there was a story of how somebody watched this movie and then 9 days after doing so, while on a hike with their family, fell off of a rocky slope and got put into a coma, just like what happened to Komeda. Maybe this was a coincidence, maybe this wasn't even true, I'm not really sure. All we can say for sure is that something haunted the actual production of this movie, and I don't think it's that much of a stretch to think that that haunting could continue to those who watch this as well.
In at number 5 we have The Descent, 2005. First up, we have The Descent, a British film from 2005 about a caving exhibition. We follow a group of 7 women exploring a cave that's never been explored before. The only way out of the cave is through it, so they travel deeper and deeper until they're trapped deep underground. We watch as one by one they meet a horrible fate, some accidental climbing mistakes, others descending into madness. They soon find out they are not alone in the cave and are being pursued by terrifying hordes of crawlers, but what we might today call Wendigo. They are a race of cave-dwelling humanoids who have adapted to near-constant darkness and lost any previous trace of humanity they may have had, becoming monsters in the process. The girls start to turn on each other while they struggle to survive in the darkness. They created 2 different endings for this film after deciding that the British ending was too dark for the US audience. In the US ending, our main character wakes up in the cave and crawls to the surface back to her car. When she is driving away, she pulls over and vomits, and when she leans back in the car, she is startled by the ghost of Juno sitting in the passenger seat. However, in the British version, they reveal that this was all a trick of their mind, and she wakes up back in the cave, having never escaped at all. The film ends with the screams of the crawlers getting louder as they surround her. This one is enough to make anyone scared of the dark. Coming in at number 4, we have Ringu, 1998, aka The Ring. We have all heard about the adaptation of The Ring, but have you seen the original, more horrifying one, Ringu? The story follows a reporter and her ex-husband as they investigate the sudden death of her niece, who died of a sudden heart failure with an unnaturally horrified expression on her face. She then finds out that her niece recently visited a cabin with her friends. Each of them had died the exact same way on the exact same night. She visits the cabin to find out what could have caused them all to die so suddenly when she finds the unlabeled tape. After watching the tape, she understands that they had all been cursed as she was now. down. Things become more tense when Reiku's young son watches the tape, starting the 1-week countdown before he too dies. She has to break the curse or she and everyone she cares about will die in less than a week. Their discovery takes them to a volcanic island where they can discover that the video has a connection to a psychic who died 30 years ago and her child. In the end, they discover that the only way to break the curse is to copy it and show it to someone else, passing it on to them, dooming them instead of you. It's a good thing no one has a VHS player anymore. In at number 3 we have A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984. This one is sure to keep you up at night. A Nightmare on Elm Street follows a group of teenagers battling a killer who attacks in their dreams. We follow Nancy and her friends trying to figure out why they're being hunted and how to stop it. This was our first introduction to the infamous Freddy Krueger, a killer who is badly burned all over his body. He uses a gloved hand with razors to kill his victims. Nowadays we all know who Freddy Krueger is, but in 1984 a killer who hunts you in your dreams was truly terrifying. Nancy has to struggle to stay awake throughout the filmmaking, depending on caffeine to keep her awake for days on end. They slowly discover that they are being hunted due to their parents being involved with Freddy's death. Nancy's mum revealed Krueger was an insane child murderer who had been released on a technicality and then burned alive by parents living on their street seeking vigilante justice. They attempt to bring Krueger out of the dream so they can kill him in the physical world. Could you stay awake for 7 days to avoid Freddy? I couldn't. In at number 2 we have Psycho 1960. This was the original slasher film. When Psycho premiered in 1960, the audiences were screaming in horror. They could not believe their eyes. It took the world by storm and instantly became a classic for horror lovers. Alfred Hitchcock wanted to shock audiences and do something no one else had ever done before. The audience were horrified that Marion Crane, the main character, had been so brutally murdered. Never before had a main character died in a film, and here she was stabbed repeatedly within the first 30 minutes. Hitchcock even received an angry letter from one man claiming his daughter is now refusing to shower thanks to this film. The film continues when Marion's sister starts to wonder where she is. Marion had stolen money from her previous job and was hoping to make a new life when she stumbled into the Bates Motel. Lila hires a private detective to look into the disappearance, but once he goes to the Bates Motel, he too never returns. When Lila and her partner Sam go to visit the house, they see Norman Bates in the window. They go to the police to report all of the mysterious disappearances, where they are told that Norman's mother, has been dead for 10 years. Later it is revealed that Norman Bates had multiple personalities and had been acting as himself and his mother since her death, killing unsuspecting women who visit the motel. It might not seem like much now, but this film was as terrifying and horrific as films came in the 60s and paved the way for the horror genre. Freaked me the out. I saw it at 4.
Number 5, Midsummer. So, first up on our list of the scariest movies is gonna be Midsummer, a movie that may hold the record for the fastest time I have ever seen something become a classic. I think Midsummer became a horror movie classic roughly 30 seconds or so after we left the theater. And there are some out there who knock on Midsummer for not being enough of a horror movie, but I would like to say boo on you. I think that's mostly bogus, just because it takes place during the day, and because like Hereditary before it, Midsummer is that nice kind of elevated horror that doesn't just get your hair standing on end and your spine all chilled, but also manages to get under your skin and start to pick away at stuff you didn't even know you were insecure and scared about. Just a bit after Ari Aster had traumatized all of us out of ever looking at a stop sign the same way in Hereditary, we got Midsummer, which will ensure I will never look at a bear the same way ever again. While Hereditary picked apart at the foundations of a crumbling family, Midsummer instead takes us into watching a friend group and a young couple getting torn apart, both metaphorically, which is scary in a very esoteric way, and literally, which is scary in a wow, that's disgusting kind of way. After a horrific, sad tragedy claims the lives of most of young Danny's family, she and her boyfriend find themselves growing distant from one another. Things look like they're gonna change when her boyfriend Christian invites her to a Swedish commune with his classmates. What looks at first like an idyllic vacation quickly unravels when it seems that commune is a Swedish word meaning scary pagan human sacrifice call, and Danny finds herself at odds with a new family that seems to welcome her grief with open arms. Midsummer contrasts gorgeous visuals of the Swedish landscape with some of the most stomach-churning body horror I've seen in a Hollywood production recently. Do you know what a blood eagle is, my friends? If you don't, do yourself a favor and don't Google that, okay? And if you do, yeah, well, you just know how horrible that was in this movie, eh? I figured we've all seen Midsummer. It's non-stop scares, but somehow, if you haven't, let me be the 1000th person to tell you you should watch this movie. If you like spooky cult movies, this is probably one of the best out there. Just don't be surprised if you can't bear some of the stuff that happens in this movie. That's a little pun about a bear. Now my friends, if you're looking for more videos about horror movies you should watch, maybe some scary urban legends, stuff about SCPs, aliens, and just about anything freaky, well subscribe to Top 5 Scary because we got all of that and then some. Stay scared, stay subscribed. Number 4, Incantation. Coming up next on the list is going to be Incantation. It's the most recent one on this list, it just came out, and I guarantee it's not like anything else you've seen unless you're a huge fan of Taiwanese found footage cinema, in which case yeah, it'll probably be pretty similar to that because that's what it is. Right off the bat, Incantation invites the viewer to join in on it, with one of the characters breaking the fourth wall and directly asking the audience to say a prayer for her daughter, which I think is such a good hook to immediately get you into a movie. A little bit of audience interaction and then forming the movie as a found footage horror movie made it seem that much more real, like you kind of forget that you're watching a production. It immerses you into the characters as much as a movie possibly could. A young woman named Lee Ronan reveals to us that years earlier she broke a religious taboo by spying on a secret ritual, and as such cursed herself and her bloodline. And when her daughter is born, she finds herself being haunted by a malevolent spirit. This movie is like a buffet plate of horror genres. If you like haunted house stuff, demon possession stuff, exorcisms, well this movie brings all of that to the table and makes all of it gripping and horrifying. And if you like really inventive, metatextual, postmodern horror stuff, well the framing device and the found footage elements really pump it all up, and I wouldn't dream of giving away the movie's twists, but it has some that you genuinely cannot possibly see coming that turn the whole experience on its head. And admittedly, maybe this is more me telling on myself for having a very Hollywood-esque kind of centralized North American horror movie palette, but it's very refreshing to see a story centered around people I don't see often in movies and a culture I don't see often in movies, somewhere I don't see often, making an already inventive script just feel that much more fresh, you know? Don't be afraid of the subtitles and don't deprive yourself out of Incantation if you're looking for a great new cursed movie to watch. Just, if you want my advice, definitely say your prayers before and after watching, you know, just to be absolutely safe. Number 3, Killing of a Sacred Deer. Coming up next is going to be Killing of a Sacred Deer from Yorgos Lanthimos, who has one of my favorite names in cinema. I needed at least one really psychological horror movie on this list that I figured most of you probably haven't seen. Like all of Lanthimos' filmography, Sacred Deer is relentlessly weird. If you want to watch a movie that's going to leave you shaking, sweating, and asking yourself in your dark living room, what the hell did I just watch? Then you're gonna love Sacred Deer, okay? A heart surgeon named Steven, played by Colin Farrell. He's got a perfect life, 2 children, a successful career, and a very, very strange relationship with a mysterious young boy named Martin, played excellently by Barry Keoghan. We learn that years earlier, Steven had operated on Martin's father, but failed to save his life, and since then has kind of taken Martin in and kept an extremely odd paternal relationship with the exceedingly strange boy, who seems determined to force himself into Steven's family by any means necessary. As Martin begins to uncomfortably ingratiate himself with Steven's children, their health starts to worsen in mysterious, paranormal ways that hospitals can't explain, and it seems like Martin knows a lot more than he's letting on. This movie feels like an actual honest-to-God nightmare that somebody filmed. It's kind of hard to describe. It doesn't really have jump scares. It's got next to no gore. There's like blood, I guess, but most of the horror comes from this unending dread, this creeping, unsettling feeling in the air that everything you're seeing is wrong. Every single line of dialogue in this movie does not sound like it was written or performed by a human being. I know that sounds like a bad movie, but everyone is performing so well that the atmosphere is like a mile thick. Everyone just talks in a way that's not in a way you expect or you're used to. It seems like everyone's from a different planet ever so slightly. It's so surreal, it feels like an extended dream. There's a scene where Barry Keoghan's character is describing how he and his dad used to eat spaghetti the same way, by swirling noodles around a fork, and it's a very innocuous conversation, but the whole thing around it is so chilling, it genuinely had me sweating. If there's anyone who thinks Barry Keoghan isn't gonna make a good Joker, please watch this movie and then come right back to me. This guy is so good at being a lunatic. This one is not gonna be for everybody, I'll be straight up. If you like your horror a little bit artsy, like if Midsummer and Hereditary totally spoke to you, Killing of a Sacred Deer probably will as well. But, you know, if you're looking for something with like a guy in a mask who's breaking through windows and pulling on Jamie Lee Curtis's ponytail, this might not be up your alley. If you're looking for something splattery and splashy, well, it might just leave you extremely confused. Number 2, The Ritual. Coming up next on the list is going to be The Ritual from director David Bruckner, part of the horror collective that contributed to the cult classic found footage movie VHS, as well as directing 2020's The Lighthouse. The Ritual is one you can find on Netflix, and if you don't load it up after this video immediately, we're probably gonna have an issue. A group of college friends meet together after a shocking tragedy claims the life of one of their friends in a random robbery. Now, before the incident, they all had made plans to hike in the woods of Sweden, and let me just pause here for a minute. Is it a bit odd that 2 of the scariest horror movies made in the last 10 years involve a group of friends going out on a vacation to Sweden? If I'm learning anything from this list in contemporary filmmaking, it's that it's not nearly as welcoming as I thought. But I digress. The friends go to Sweden in their late friend's honor and discover that it is really not the best of ideas when things turn horribly wrong very quickly. Discovering an elk gutted out in the woods, they suspect there is a lot more out in those woods than just the wildlife. The Ritual is kind of like if the Blair Witch Project and the Wicker Man loved each other very dearly and had a beautiful baby and they let it play with Midsummer on the weekends. You get to watch a friend group at odds with themselves lost in the woods, deal with mysteries of a secret Nordic cult, and it's got lots of good creepy supernatural cult stuff, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but I'll say it's got one of the coolest monsters put to film in recent memory I can think of. I would love a statue of that thing. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot is going to be The Mist. Directed by Frank Darabont, who is probably the king of adapting Stephen King's works into films, having directed The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, and The Mist. Interestingly though, unlike The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption, which are both very accurate depictions of the source material, The Mist deviates a little bit. It's got an alternate ending which is way darker than the original story, but here's the catch: Stephen King actually says he prefers it, which has to be the highest compliment possible. If the guy who wrote the original terrifying story can watch the movie and say, you did a better job. He certainly didn't say that about Stanley Kubrick. If you don't know the plot of The Mist, like all Stephen King movies, it takes place in a small town in Maine when a massive thunderstorm has descended upon the community. It focuses on a group of ordinary people caught in a grocery store locked in as a mysterious mist starts to encircle the town, and strange creatures from beyond this world start to complicate things. This thing is very tight, focusing on what happens to normal people when put up against the most overwhelming odds imaginable, trapped with eldritch horrors threatening them just outside their little sanctuary of suburbia, and trying to protect your family from all the danger. It is tense as all get out. If you like monsters and creative monsters too, oh man is The Mist a treat. They hide them well, you know, in the mist. You never get too good a look at any of them, but that wouldn't be much fun. The way they do it here, letting you catch glimpses here and there, and letting your mind fill in all the horrible details and all the tentacle abominations, oh baby, that's horror at its finest. Reminds me a bit of Cloverfield in that regard. You know, The Mist might not be the scariest movie ever made, but it is an absolutely great one that is often forgot about sometimes when we discuss great horror movies. It's out there on Netflix, so you got no reason not to. In fact, I tried pretty hard to curate this list of mostly stuff that was streaming on Netflix so you could watch them after I was done talking about them. Don't say the casual Crypt Keeper doesn't do anything nice for you now.